Hello and welcome to ET Now Startup Central, India's first and only daily show dedicated to startups, technology and entrepreneurship. This entire week it has been about GST, and with just a day to go for that July 1st date, we're going to continue, keep it with GST coverage. Now, day before we told you about the e-commerce impact on GST from a 360-degree perspective. Yesterday we told you about the technology aspect. And today we are really going to get into the nitty-gritties. We are going to give you a GST checklist that every seller really needs to have, whether it's online, whether it's offline, and what all one needs to really keep in mind before that July 1st deadline and before that September 1st deadline. Those are the two crucial months that every businessman needs to really keep in mind. And who better than Archit Gupta of ClearTax? ClearTax is one of a startup that's one of the GST Suvidha providers, providing the software backup, the billing systems to really help a lot of businessmen migrate to GST. We also have Ritesh Tandon, a member of the All India Online Vendors Association, or AIOVA, to really take us through how prepared online sellers are and the role that e-commerce sites are playing in transitioning to GST. But I'm going to take it to Archit first. Archit, you have been working quite closely with a lot of businesses in the last few months. A lot of people are saying that this is perhaps ClearTax's demonetization moment, what demonetization meant for Paytm. But take us through, how sellers have really adapted so far. Is there still a lot of room left? Are they completely ready? How are you seeing things on the ground?
Right. So, Chandra, July 1 is happening. So, that reality has now sunk into the ecosystem, fraternity and everyone. So, that part is now great. So, but readiness perspective, right? I feel like people are still acknowledging it, waking up to that reality of July 1. So, the first thing which businesses need to do is make sure that they are issuing GST compliant or GST ready invoices or start using a GST ready billing software. Now, erstwhile either people were using paper or were on Excel or Word. Now that they need to change, and that is one of the important steps businesses need to take. The other part is for the vendors, their suppliers and for their customers, they now need to ask for GST INs, the GST identification number of the customers and the vendors. So we are seeing frantic activity in collecting those numbers in the entire space, e-commerce space, offline space. Like people are saying we will not buy or sell to folks in the B2B scenario where GST IN is not known, and for selling obviously they don't care, but they will want to quote it because the seller needs to claim input tax credit. For consumer businesses, less of an effect, so it is still more business as usual.
Ritesh, you heard out Archit there saying that they are finally waking up to the reality of July 1st. But what has your experience been, considering you consult with a lot of these e-commerce sites? There is definitely a temporary relief that the tax collection at source is not going to happen now. It's only going to happen in September. But in terms of GST readiness, take us through your own experience in terms of how online sellers are coping with this change.
See, the one major difference that I think a lot of people don't know, when it comes to e-commerce, the invoices are not generated by the sellers. They are being generated by the portal itself. So as far as the format of the invoicing is concerned, e-commerce, we are as a seller sorted. When it comes to the GST number, the HS codes of the products, all of that has been collected by the e-commerce portals from the sellers in past 2 months. So for us, 1st of July has been prepared for. We've been fighting for it from past 2 months, and we've been preparing for all our products on different portals. And we are hoping it will go on as smoothly as we all, are hoping for.
Right. Ritesh, just a follow-up question. You said how it's different for e-commerce sellers versus others. How much of a relief is this deferment of TCS going to be? the government has clarified to us in an interview day before. Hasmukh Adia said that it will kick in from September, so there's no change in policy per se. But this was a major deterrent for e-commerce firms. They didn't even want that 1% TCS because it will become nightmarish to implement, you know, when they're dealing with tens of thousands of sellers on every platform. So how much of a relief is that deferment, you know, will it serve any purpose at all?
See, the major problem which was going to be faced was by the marketplaces, since they are the one who has to involve as a middleman for this sort of tax. As far as the seller is concerned, since it's gonna be applicable from September, we need to start working on it from today. It's not a 1 month time will not help. Now the benefit for a seller is, if the TCS is implemented, a lot of people who were earlier trying to save on taxes or trying to figure out a way of tax cutting, that will not happen. So all the sellers will have a equal footing in terms of selling online and the prices of the product. So no one, whoever is trying to steal tax and cut down the pricing of the product, will not be able to enjoy that sort of leverage, because since it's only just for a month.
Right. Archit, I'm going to take it back to you. You know, at the beginning of the show, I promised viewers a GST checklist, so to speak. I'm going to ask you to really break it down to us, simplify it as much as possible, to really give us a checklist. What are the things that people need to do to comply with GST by July 1st or by September when they actually start filing returns? What are the steps they need to follow? You know, 3 or 4 steps that everyone needs to keep in mind for GST.
Right. So Chandra, great question. Like, what does a business need to do for preparing for GST, right? Like, yeah, like a checklist, right? Like, so first things first, right? Like making sure that they have migrated to the GST regime. So, right, that comes first. Either they need to migrate or create a fresh registration under GST, right? So, if you were erstwhile in the VAT regime, or you were in the service tax, excise, etc. regime, you can migrate onto the GST system, and you'll have to go to the GST portal, the GSTN portal, and create a registration for yourself for the migration. So that is very straightforward. However, people, I believe the business community was facing challenges in terms of there's some teething trouble. The portal had some issues which the business community had expressed. So they're constantly fixing it, but that's part one. Part two is about collecting GSTINs of vendors, suppliers, and GSTINs of the customers, so that you can actually create GST ready invoices, because you will need the GSTINs of B2B customers and from seller and suppliers that you have which are selling to you for input tax credit, because in GST you will have to claim input tax credit. You want to make sure you are collecting that and giving that information out so that your purchases have the GST compliance done. So that is really important. The third part is moving on to a GST ready billing solution, so that, like, we recently launched the ClearTax free GST bill book to solve for this for businesses. So we saw massive demand. People wanted to create GST ready invoices. So same thing, use any platform, use any software, like, but or start recording your sales in a clean Excel format which has been rotated around by the government and other parties. So just record all this information, because you will need this come September 5th. The fourth part would be, like, now starting to engage and read about how does 3 parts of the GST work: the GSTR 1, the GSTR 2, GSTR 3. So getting ready for that, but like that I think can still wait for July 15th or 20th. So July 1, I think the first 3 items, that would be my checklist.
Thanks for taking us through those part 1, part 2, part 3. Ritesh, do you want to add anything to that? Anything else that we may have missed, or if you want to add to what Archit has said as far as that GST checklist is concerned?
See, as far as the online sellers are concerned, I would wanna clarify a few things. First of all, listened to the portals. The marketplaces have been very vigilant, and they have been very thorough with explaining on how to be effective sellers of post GST. So listen to them. Second, be honest with your accountants, the CAs. You know, they say lawyers, doctors are the people that you have to be honest with. I think now the chartered accountants are adding on that list. And as far as being registering on GST is concerned, Aadhaar cards are very important, and Iowa have been organizing for sellers at least classes. So you should all come together and join and learn. GST is here to stay, and we should all be educated for it.
Right. Ritesh, just a follow-up question there. You said listen to the portals. Have the portals been doing enough? Because, we spoke to Amazon and Myntra and Urban Ladder. All of them have been talking a lot about how they've been working with sellers, really getting them GST ready. So has enough been done on part of the e-commerce companies? Because as you said, the way it works online is completely different. The invoices are generated by the marketplaces. So has enough been done? Are they prepared to migrate to GST?
See, I still feel there is a lack. They should have done more, since in India especially, not all of the sellers are 100% educated or someone who understands the new rules and regulations. So I would have, of course, preferred the online marketplaces to do more. But the material is available on the website. They have tried to calm down the sellers and try to keep them online. But if you actually go online right now and check, Amazon has more than 4.5 lakh products missing from the electronics accessories part, because people are afraid of selling post GST. So people are removing some products from the portals. There is some sort of a tension going on, but their materials are available. Anyone who wants to sell post GST can go and access these materials, and they don't need to worry. Everything will be sorted, and marketplace are taking care.
Right. Archit, the good news and bad news for GST is everything is going to happen online. GSTN has been tasked with that, and we spoke to Naveen Kumar yesterday. He at least was very confident that everything has been beta tested, but you can never say enough is enough when it comes to technology and software testing. But take us through the process flow here. So from what I understand, from the time the invoices are generated, it will pass through the GST Suvidha providers, provided the sellers or businessmen are working with one of them. You happen to be a GST Suvidha provider as well, and from there it goes to the GST server. So is this the way it's going to work, and will it be like an entire month cycle where on the 10th you do something, 15th you do something, and on the 20th you finally pay the tax that is due to you? What is the process flow that's going to work here?
Right, so I will go through the cycle one by one, Chandra, with you. Like once the GST teething phase is over, right, let's say from October, the goal will be that on the 10th of the month, you have to file what is called a GSTR1. That is uploading all the invoices that you sold to businesses to the GST network. On the 15th of the month, you will be, you have to finish matching, approving or rejecting purchases that you have done. So basically that helps you claim input tax credit. So on the purchases, you have paid GST, that helps you reduce your tax liability. And by the 20th, you have to pay the tax which is due. So in the case of exporters, etc., they may even have a refund coming in because of the credit government offers for exports. So these three activities will go from 10th, 15th to 20th, and mostly the GST system is completely electronic. So I'll go through some of the flow which happens. So either you may be using a GST billing software, accounting package, or ERP, from which invoices will originate, the sales register as it is called, and then the purchase register of the purchases that you are doing. These will flow into an application like ClearTax or others, where this can be then submitted to the government system by these applications. They will be changed, transformed into a government compliant format. Now once that happens, you have to remember these deadlines of 10th, 15th and 20th and make those submissions to the government and pay your taxes or get refunds on the excess payment that you have made. So this is basically the flow which the businesses need to follow.
Right. Thanks for that, Arjit. So very clear here. You have, though Hasmukh again clarified that only one is filed by the person, the others are generated by GSTN. These are the dates you need to keep in mind. So 10th is when you upload invoices, GSTR 1. 15th is when you have to match, reject, approve invoices so that you can claim that input tax credit. That's GSTR 2. And GSTR 3 happens on the 20th when you finally pay the tax that is due to you. But remember, there are thresholds here on, based on the annual turnover of businesses. Some will, GST will apply to some, it won't apply to others. We will come back to Archit for that clarification. But Ritesh, I want to follow up on what you said, in your previous answer, that perhaps, there is a lag. E-commerce companies should have done more. Is this going to have an impact on demand and supply in the next few months? Because a lot of people expect some kind of disruption there as, people take stock of inventory. This is a concern that many people have, the inventory concerns across e-commerce networks. So do you expect some disruption there, no matter how prepared e-commerce portals are for GST?
I think to show their strength, they have been doing extraordinary discounts in past 10 to 15 days and has given phenomenal numbers. Some can say that it was to get cleared of the pre-GST stock that they had in their warehouses. Some can say just to clarify to the consumers that they have nothing to fear. The products are here and the online business will not suffer because of GST. But as far as the seller community is concerned, we are very positive. We have no doubt that even after post-GST, our sales numbers will keep increasing. When it comes to online purchases and offline purchases, there is a certain level of comfort is at play, because a lot of offline players don't have the technology to create these invoices, to upload them as per the government's rules and regulations is concerned, since as you have already pointed out, to put these taxes you need infrastructure, the hardware or the internet connection. Now when it comes to online business, all the sellers have to have a internet connection, have to have a computer from the start, since it's the whole fundamental of selling online. So I think post GST, e-commerce or the online community might not be affected as much as the offline community might be.
Offline community, important to see how it's going to affect them, particularly the shadow economy, which people believe is a huge contributor to growth in the country. But Archit, coming back to you, considering returns will only be filed from September, what will really happen on July 1st, the date that has got all of us excited and prepared? What really happens day after tomorrow?
Right. So July 1st, I think maybe in my mind, a few things. I think coming back to the original question also you asked, right? People will need to figure out what is the tax rate that is applicable to the item they are selling. So there is the concept of HSN or SAC, which just identifies the item that you are selling. It is just an identifier, but making sure you are creating the GST ready bill in the right tax rate. And the other part is learning how to do GST ready billing. What that means is, when you are selling within your state, then there is a concept of central GST and state GST. So paying CGST and SGST, and when you are paying interstate, when you are paying selling to another state, that is the IGST. So once you understand this part, July 1 will be fairly clean, fairly straightforward. However, certain decisions are upcoming for small and medium businesses. I will touch upon that because it is crucial. One is that if your turnover is below 20 lakh, either as a service business or a goods business, you are not in the GST system unless you are in e-commerce. So, but for 20 lakh, not much work. July 1 is easy. For people up to the businesses up to turnover of 75 lakh, they need to identify and decide whether they are going to go into composition scheme or not, and that's a business strategy decision. It is a business level decision which the business owner must take. They may speak to their consultant or expert or somebody they trust to either remain in composition or get out of it. And above 75 lakh, definitely a lot of impact on GST, creating the right documentation in GST and then uploading it to the government. It will be serious work in terms of both investing in technology, having to deal with the electronic system. So this is crucial. essential, and people in our country may not have the right internet connectivity, may have not invested in a technology laptop or a tablet or a PC. So these are kind of the things which I would think about if your turnover is above that 75 lakh threshold.
Right. Internet connection is something that Ritesh also mentioned, something that all of us hope people have good connectivity to, because as he said, it's not so much the online sellers who have to be bothered about this, but it's the offline sellers. But Archit, what is the worst case scenario according to you? The Murphy's Law kicking in, that, what could go wrong here according to you, Archit? The worst case scenario that you're factoring in as far as implementation is concerned.
I think it is going to be about, and that's what we are working towards, it is going to be about training people, experts and businesses into the GST regime. And the other aspect I would take is connectivity and availability of internet. Once such training has happened, once people have understood what they need to do, I think what we have taken a pledge at ClearTax is in the next 60 days, we will train 1 lakh professionals on the ClearTax GST platform, for example, so that they can understand how to do this filing, billing, etc., etc. So like we are just focused on that, like how do we get people ready, and I think the government's focus will also be that, like educating the business owners, educating the experts, because I think if the wrong filing happens or enough filings do not happen, then the input tax credit portion will be the one which will get challenged and people will get a higher tax bill, and nobody wants that. So I would worry about that scenario, just training people, getting them ready to understand this, what is GST all about.
Thanks for that, Archit. I'm going to get some closing remarks from Ritesh as well. Ritesh, as far as online sellers, I'm going to include offline sellers as well, are concerned. What do they need to keep in mind? Your closing comments.
See, I really like the example that you gave of the Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. So we need to be very careful when it comes to filing your taxes. You need to be very careful about your hardware capabilities at home, at your office, where you will be putting out your invoices. Maybe you will be using different softwares. Now the advice or the suggestion that I would give, seeing as my experience has been offline and online both, would be that from post 1st July, all your invoices have to be compliant with not just the format, but also the data that you'll be managing pre-purchase of the products from your raw material guys or your manufacturers to after sale of the invoices, and the returns, which is a very big thing. So people who are buying products online on 30th might be returning it back on 2nd or 3rd. So these are the questions that you need to be very careful with. You need to make sure that your numbers in your invoices are in order, and slowly I'm sure this system will be more manageable.
Sure. Archit and Ritesh, thank you so much for talking to us in a special edition of Startup Central. We hope that gave you a sense of, the checklist you need to have, the steps you need to follow both in June and September when the actual filing of returns begin. But with that, we're out of time here in this edition of Startup Central. Thanks so much for watching.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow, and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/ETNow.